The heart beneath the charade, the golden chandeliers cast warm light across the marble ballroom, their crystals dancing like tiny stars above the elegant crowd. Alexander Hayes adjusted his navy suit jacket and took a deep breath. As CEO of Hayes Industries, he commanded boardrooms with confidence. But tonight felt different. Tonight, he wasn't sure he could pull off the performance of his life. Beside him, Emma Rodriguez smoothed the emerald silk of her borrowed gown. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the diamond earrings that caught the chandelier light. Just hours ago, she had been cleaning his penthouse office in her simple uniform. Now she wore designer heels and felt like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. "Remember," Alexander whispered, his voice gentle. "We've been dating for 3 months. We met at a charity event. You work in marketing." Emma nodded, tucking a curl behind her ear. She had worked for Alexander for 2 years, cleaning his downtown office and occasionally his apartment. She knew he took his coffee black and worked late into the night. She knew he kept photos of his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, on every desk, but she had never imagined standing beside him like this. The arrangement had started with a desperate phone call 3 days ago. Alexander's ex-wife, Victoria, was taking Sophie to live in Paris with her new husband. The custody hearing was next week, and Victoria's lawyer painted Alexander as a workaholic bachelor, too focused on business to provide a stable home. "I need to show the judge I can offer Sophie a real family," Alexander had explained, pacing his office while Emma organized files. "Victoria's team says I'm too consumed with work. If they see me in a committed relationship, it could change everything." Emma had looked up, surprised to be included in such a personal conversation. Alexander rarely spoke about his private life, though she noticed the worry lines around his eyes since the custody battle began. "What about your girlfriend?" Emma had asked innocently. "There is no girlfriend," he admitted quietly. "There hasn't been anyone serious since Victoria left. Sophie has been my whole world." The silence was broken only by the antique clock on his bookshelf. Then Alexander turned to face her, his dark eyes filled with desperation. "Emma, I know this sounds crazy, but would you help me? Just for one evening. There's a charity gala tomorrow night that Victoria's lawyer will attend. If he sees me with someone genuine and kind, it might show the judge I can provide the stable home Sophie needs now." Standing in the ballroom surrounded by the city's elite, Emma wondered if she had made the right choice. She watched Alexander's business associates approach with their wives draped in jewels and confidence. These people belonged in this world. Emma felt like an actress who had forgotten her lines. "Alexander, darling." A woman in shimmering gold swept toward them, her smile bright and calculating. "You look absolutely handsome tonight. And who is this lovely creature?" Alexander's hand found Emma's back, warm and steady. "Mrs. Wellington, I'd like you to meet Emma Rodriguez." "Emma, this is Margaret Wellington from the hospital board." Emma extended her hand, grateful for her grandmother's etiquette lessons. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Wellington." "Rodriguez," Margaret repeated, eyebrows raising slightly. "And what do you do, dear?" Before Emma could answer, Alexander stepped closer. "Emma works in marketing for a non-profit. She's been invaluable in organizing our charity initiatives." It wasn't entirely untrue. Emma had suggested community outreach ideas during their conversations. She just hadn't realized Alexander had been listening. As the evening progressed, Emma relaxed into the role. Alexander was attentive, bringing her champagne and introducing her with genuine warmth. When the orchestra began playing, he extended his hand with a small smile. "Would you care to dance?" The ballroom floor was crowded with couples swaying to a gentle waltz. Emma hesitated before placing her hand in his. Alexander led her onto the floor with surprising grace, one hand on her waist while the other held her fingers gently. "You're doing beautifully," he murmured as they moved together. "I can't thank you enough, Emma. You have no idea how much this means to me and Sophie." Emma looked up into his eyes and felt something shift in her chest. She had always thought Alexander was handsome in a distant way, but seeing the vulnerability beneath his composed exterior, she realized there was so much more to him than the successful businessman who barely noticed her. "You're a good father," she said softly. "Sophie is lucky to have someone who loves her this much." Alexander's steps slowed slightly. For a moment, they were simply two people holding each other in a room full of strangers. "Sometimes I wonder if love is enough. Victoria can give her Paris, museums, culture. I can give her board, meetings and late nights. You can give her a father who would do anything for her," Emma replied without hesitation, including asking his housekeeper to pretend to be his girlfriend because he's terrified of losing her. "That's not a distant workaholic, Alexander. That's a man who loves his daughter more than his pride." The music swelled around them, and Alexander's grip tightened almost imperceptibly. When the song ended, neither stepped away immediately. The spell broke with a familiar voice that made Alexander's shoulders tense. Well, Alexander Hayes, looking quite cozy. They turned to see a sharp-featured man in an expensive tuxedo, his smile cold and predatory. Emma didn't need an introduction to recognize Victoria's lawyer, David Morrison. Alexander nodded coolly, enjoying the evening immensely. "And you must be the mysterious girlfriend." Morrison's gaze swept over Emma with calculation. How refreshing to see Alexander with someone so authentic. The word dripped with condescension, but Emma straightened her shoulders. She recognized a bully when she saw one. "Thank you," she replied evenly. "Alexander speaks of you often as well." Morrison's smile faltered at her composed response. "I hope we'll see more of you, Miss Rodriguez, and I'm sure we will." Emma smiled sweetly, then turned to Alexander. "Darling, didn't you promise to introduce me to the museum director? I'm interested in their children's art program." As they walked away, Alexander squeezed her hand. "That was brilliant," he whispered. Evening passed in conversations and carefully orchestrated moments. Emma found herself genuinely enjoying discussions with non-profit leaders who shared her passion for community service. By the time they said goodbyes, she almost forgot it was pretend. The car ride to Alexander's penthouse was quiet, both lost in thought. Emma stared at the city lights, trying to process the evening. When they arrived, Alexander walked her to the door. "Emma," he began, voice uncertain. "Tonight didn't feel like pretending. The way you handled Morrison, talked with everyone. You were perfect." Emma felt her heart skip. "Alexander ... I know this was just business," he continued quickly. "But having you by my side tonight felt right in a way I haven't experienced." In years they stood in the hallway, the elegant gowns suddenly heavy on Emma's shoulders. She had entered this evening thinking she was helping her employer. She hadn't expected to fall for a man who was supposed to be completely out of her league. The custody hearing is next week," she said quietly. "What happens after that?" Alexander stepped closer, his hand rising to gently touch her cheek. "I hope you'll let me find out. Not as my employee, not as my fake girlfriend, but as Emma, the woman who made me remember what it feels like to have someone truly by my side." The kiss that followed was soft and tentative, filled with promise of something real blooming from their careful charade. When they separated, Emma smiled up at him, her heart full of unexpected hope. "I'd like that very much," she whispered. Months later, at Sophie's birthday party in Alexander's backyard, Emma would catch the little girl's bouquet of dandelions and realize that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness. And sometimes, pretending to be someone's everything helps you discover that you already are.